The presenting sponsor of Rates and Barrels is Topps.com and Topps Project 70. Topps is celebrating the 70th anniversary of its very first baseball card design with a new program that pushes boundaries while paying homage to the company's heritage. Project 70 has brought together creators of all kinds for this extraordinary set. Graphic designers, tattoo and graffiti artists, animators, illustrators, painters, and even a jeweler make up the artist roster, which includes names like Snoop Dogg, Action Bronson, Ben Baller, Brittany Palmer, Jeff Staple, Tyson Beck, Alex Pardee, and more. Each artist will select their own MLB players and Topps designs from any year to craft a unique story. Ever want to know what Ronald Acuna Jr. would look like in a 1959 Topps design? Or how about Bobby Valentine in a disguise in a template from the 1990s? 3 new cards launch daily all year long on Topps.com and are only available for 70 hours before they're gone for good. And while you're there, be on the lookout for special cards. Head to Topps.com to learn more about Project 70 and to check out which cards are live right now. Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by Topps. Check out Topps Project 70, celebrating 70 years of Topps baseball cards. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you on this Friday. It's Friday, August 20th, if we are your source of what day is it today, or what is the date today. Happy to help. And of course, as always, we are brought to you by Topps. Let's get into some topics today. You know, I've got a bunch of stuff on the rundown that I'm excited about. I'm always excited about the rundown. Wait a minute. If you're watching us on YouTube, it looks like the Cheshire Cat, and I don't know why. What's going on with you,
I'm faking it till I make it. I'm awake. This is how I wake up. I don't drink coffee.
Yeah, well, we're on the same page for now. I drink coffee. I'm not used to getting up early enough to make coffee for all my shows, which is really problematic because I kind of need it to be good at my job, or at least competent at my job. So we'll see how this goes. An uncaffeinated version, but I did shower, so I think that's like the value.
Half the battle?
Half the coffee? Yeah.
Half a coffee.
I mean, a pot of coffee gets me a lot further than a shower, but a shower is probably like the first cup of coffee of the day. So I'll take that, and it's not smell-o-vision, but I'm sure everybody appreciates the extra effort, especially on YouTube. Clearly, I need a haircut and a shave, so the grooming is, behind pace for where it should be at this point, especially on it's the weekend. Like, you got to be cleaned up for the weekend. You're going to go to the beach or do something nice.
I limp into the weekend.
Oh, you just drag yourself to the weekend?
Drag myself to the weekend's doorstep, barely making it every week. This is actually a thing that happened in any career that I've had, since I've had about 3 so far, is that no matter what, Friday, I always thought, like in school, Friday was like, oh, Friday, like, let's go out, and then as soon as I became a professional, I was like, Friday, let's go out. No, tomorrow.
Let's save it for Saturday. That's kind of how it goes. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I got another round of random furniture and things to build, so that's my weekend.
That's your weekend.
That's my weekend, building it all up. On this episode, we're going to talk about some starting pitching, because on the last episode, we talked a lot about bats, especially just in the top 10, and we kind of wondered, like, who's the number 1 pitcher? We'll dig into that a little bit, talk about some other guys who might be near the top of the board, but we're also going to talk about some players that have taken massive steps forward this season, try to figure out how much we trust those players to hold those skills gains going forward. A lot of great mailbag questions, as always, that we'll get to as well. But let's begin with our pitching conversation. There's an actual debate atop the board because of Jacob deGrom's injury, and I think Walker Buehler currently stands out to me as the most likely first pitcher off the board if we're looking ahead to 2022, but I think Garrett Cole is a candidate for that. I think Brandon Woodruff, who you mentioned as a possible option last time out, he could be in the mix. Maybe Corbin Burns is in the conversation at least. Scherzer, Zach Wheeler, Jack Flaherty, probably not for first off the board, but near the top of the group, right? So we're kind of pushing into this range. Maybe we've got 5 to 10 names that definitely make sense as a group of guys who will be among the first off the board. Darvish, I think, will still be close to that if he's not a part of that group as well. But as you kind of think about names that belong clearly in the conversation, one that I didn't immediately think of that I saw on the earned value calculator is Kevin Gausman. And he's a free agent this offseason. So where he goes this winter is going to guide some of this. But how much are we believing in this version of Kevin Gausman as something that we could get possibly in other ballparks and in the future?
I mean, he's definitely one of those guys that has both stuff and command. And I think the only question mark, the only asterisk is that his arsenal is not wide. And it's not going to get any wider. But I've talked to him recently. I talked to his pitching coaches. I talked to his manager, working up a story about him. And, some people say like, oh, if you can command the slider to both sides of the plate, it's 2 pitches, right? And I think for him, what stands out is his command plus is 111 last year. It's like 110 or something this year. Like he's a guy who has great command and great stuff. It's not side to side though. It's up and down. And I guess that works in the modern game. He has a changeup he'll throw that's above the strike zone and drops into it. Then he has a fastball that stays above the zone. Right. And then he has a fastball that's in the zone. And he has a fastball. He can do a changeup that's at the top of the zone that drops further. So like he just works up and down with both of them. And when he really needs a whiff, it's the splitter because that just has the nastiest movement. So I have to say, like, it's a little bit Tyler Glasnow-y, but without the injury component and more command. I mean, who else is like this? Corbin? But Corbin didn't throw 97.
No, not even close.
Who else is like this? Who's a 2-pitch guy that like went far? Lester? But he had good command, but he didn't throw hard. At least not the end.
Premium velocity.
And he sort of became like 3 and 4 pitch guy as he got older.
Yeah, it's hard to get by with 2 pitches like that at the highest possible level. You can be very good for a long time and make it work, but
maybe we're not giving the changeup enough script though. Let's say it's a 3-pitch mix because people have 2 breaking balls, right? Why it wouldn't be that weird if a guy has 2 changeups, right?
No, wouldn't be weird.
All right, so he's a 3 changeup. He's a 3-pitch guy with command and stuff. I don't know why. The only thing is a homer problem sometimes because he up in the zone. Sometimes he loses a little bit of ride on the fastball and things fall apart.
Yeah, I'm torn here.
I'd say it's more risk than some of the other guys. I mean, Buehler has like 3 breaking balls and throws hard and has high ride and
yeah. If the changeup, the second changeup and the slider, if those were 10-15% pitches, if even if one of them were, that would go a really long way here, just in terms of the usage. Like it's definitely a limiting factor for me.
I think the changeup might be. I think we misclassified a lot. But I'm going to try and look into that because he gave me some percentage and I forget exactly what it was, but it's more than what we have.
The splitter is ridiculous by results, by the way. Holy cow. I have not looked at this in a while. 109 batting average against, 156 slugging against, and a 141 WOBA allowed on that pitch. I mean, that is
all the damage is on the fastball. Yeah. But like okay, so Woodruff and Buehler are easy for me. Ahead of him. They just have more pitches, younger. I don't know. They have the same amount of sort of stuff in command. Buehler has more stuff than command, but it's good. This may come up a little bit more later, but stuff is stickier year to year than command. This is a recent thing that we found out while we're benchmarking. So it is a little better to bet on stuff year to year. And then if you find a breakout and it's because they have good location like Robbie Ray this year, then you can bet on them because location becomes sticky within year really fast. So given that, Gausman has good stuff, but Woodruff and Buehler have better stuff.
Yeah, I
think the hardest thing for Gausman is where do you put him against the injured old guys? Scherzer.
He kind of fits just behind that group for me, like the injured older guys. I mean, a healthy Clayton Kershaw, I think I'd still take over Gausman. It'd be close, but I think Gausman and Lance Lynn are bundled together. I'm looking at the RotoWire rankings right now just because Clay Link does a great job leading that effort to keep those updated, and they're both just outside the top 10. that makes sense in my head, at least in terms of how I group players. But because he's got okay, so here's the would you rather Cole versus Gausman. Obviously Cole, right? Not even really a debate. Bueller, you just mentioned, is clearly ahead of him. Woodruff's ahead of him. Corbin Burns clearly ahead of him. DeGrom. Is Giolito still up there? I think he's the name I didn't mention before that most people might still have as a top 10 pitcher.
I think I'd have them near each other, but I think I'd take Gausman over Giolito.
Interesting. Okay, so they'd be at least same tier.
Gio doesn't have good command.
Or Nola?
I'll take Gausman over Nola because Gausman has more stuff.
Okay. You might be a little higher on Gausman than most. What about Zach Wheeler, who's having just an amazing season for the Phillies?
Wheeler is like back end top 5 for me now.
Okay. So, yeah, so when we're talking about drafts next spring, I mean, Wheeler might be going like at that 1-2 turn.
Well, if there's also this whole thing of NLDH. You know, that just makes it kind of hard. Let's say, assuming NLDH, I go Cole, Bueller, DeGrom.
And that's assuming DeGrom is entering draft season healthy.
Right. I think DeGrom, I'm going to just take an NA on DeGrom right now. I think we need more information. Cole, Bueller, Woodruff. Because if there's an NLDH, I think Cole's just done it for so long, and he made it through the sticky stuff enforcement and came out the other side, and he has a big pitch mix, and they're all really good pitches. So I think it's Cole number 1 for me. Bueller also has had an injury history. He hasn't even really settled down into his 3 breaking balls. You know, his breaking balls are kind of in flux all the time. Anyway, but I'm not really talking crap on him because he's not a number 2. So Cole, Bueller, Woodruff. Okay, then the ones that are hard next are Burns.
Burns is so good, man. It's ridiculous. Like
who else goes in that Burns group? Oh, who am I missing? Let me get my ranks up. That'll help.
Yeah, get your ranks going too. I mean, like we mentioned, Darvish. He's clearly somewhere in here.
Not that high up for me.
Behind the Burns group.
Oh, Scherzer.
Yeah, Scherzer's still in here. Is he in the top group or is he in that second one?
I think he's after Burns. Afterburners. He's after Burns. I think Scherzer, Gausman, Bieber, Scherzer. I mean, I need information on Bieber too.
You're already thinking about beer. Bieber is a ghost right now. It feels like same situation as DeGrom. Like I have no confidence about what his actual availability for the start of the season
and
is going to look like.
Let's say you were drafting right now. I think you would push them all down because they could have TJ or whatever. They could have surgery. We still don't know. Like people sort of think Bieber is going to miss the whole season from what I hear from poking around the team. So what you've got is Cole. Why do I have Bueller so low in this ranking? It's weird.
He lost a bunch of spin, which is pretty fascinating. Yeah. He's still pitching really well.
The bat only projects him 17 going forward when I had him. I think he should be number 2. No, I love Brandon Woodruff so much. I'm going to Cole, Woodruff, Bueller, Wheeler. Cole, Woodruff, Bueller, Burns, Wheeler. Whew. Then what?
Wide open.
That's 5?
Yeah, that was 5. That was a top 5.
5. Okay, I'll put Scherzer in because he's pitching. He's not like in that DeGrom category where we don't know what he's going to do. He's a little bit of an injury risk and he's older. So I'll put Scherzer 6. And then I guess that we start talking about Gausman, Rodon, Nola, and Giolito and Peralta, maybe Musgrove. And then Lynn. And Nola. That's sort of my top 15.
That is it feels so messy. Not like your ranking specifically, but just
Well,
names that are getting in there.
the funniest thing is I used to be able to get to like the top 10 being like bop, 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 like I did with the top 5, right? Like I'd just be like, yeah, this is the top 10. I feel like I used to be able to do that for top 20. And then it was top 15. And then it was top 10. And now I'm like 5. We got 5 good pitchers. And everybody else has question marks.
It's not a good trend. Because
one day we'll be like, well, we have Cole.
We know who the best pitcher is, but we really don't know anything after that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what it's like when DeGrom's healthy.
Yeah, that's very true. So we didn't really think about him because of our weekly league mindsets when we were first talking about top 5 overall players. But where does Ohtani go among pitchers for you? There's some leagues that split him into hitter and a pitcher, but if you're just evaluating him solely based on what he brings as a pitcher, I feel like his workload as a pitcher relative to his to the other top starting pitchers, there's more of a discrepancy there than there is compared to his workload as a hitter compared to the other top hitters, right? We talked about that a little bit on Wednesday's show. Like he's down in playing time compared to the guys that play every single day, but he's not so far down in playing time where it's working that much against him. He's thrown 100 innings so far this season, 18 starts, 120 Ks, a 2.79 ERA, a 106 WHIP. Still has some control issues, but those are actually getting a bit better. I mean, look at his more recent body of work. He's got a 25-3 over his last 27 innings. So no walks in 3 of his last 4 starts. So it's really impressive to see that side of his game taking a step forward as well. If you're only ranking Ohtani as a pitcher, where in the ballpark do you think he'd end up?
God, I hate that. I hate this. I hate that this works out this way, but he reminds me of a younger Yu Darvish in that he has great stuff, but not great command. And the command does itch at me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think what he's doing right now is what I would project him anywhere close to next year. And the one nice thing though is that his location plus is not as bad as his command plus. His command plus is like 87 this year, which is below the kind of reliever shelf that we've talked about on the show. However, Max Bay was looking at benchmarking and validation for our model, and he said that when he used location plus, when he switched out location plus for command plus did not add any information to our model. So basically, location plus and command plus are fairly interchangeable. It's possible that command plus is stickier year to year than location plus. We'd have to do that work still. But in any case, Shohei Ohtani's location plus is 96. So just slightly below average. He can locate the slider well, which is really important, we know. And he can locate the cutter well. He just can't locate the four seam that well or the curve. I don't know. It's a that and the injury are enough for me to not put him in the top 10 or anything. I mean, how many innings is he going to give you? And then how will the bad command manifest itself in the future?
Both fair questions. I guess the way I would try and look at Ohtani is if you're capping him around 140 or 150 innings, where do the guys who we generally expect to fall in that range, where do they go? How far do they slide compared to the top pitchers? And I guess the first name that always pops into my head when I think about 140 to 150 innings being the ceiling is Rich Hill.
Right? Oh, no, Kershaw.
Well, Kershaw now, but I'm just saying year over.
But back in the day.
Previously, Kershaw was just, he was Kershaw. He was fine. Kershaw now is probably more like that. But I just think, okay, how did we treat Rich Hill as a guy that would give us really good ratios, plenty of strikeouts, and just not as many innings as everybody else? And a lot of times Rich Hill would fall, I think, into the 140, 150 overall range. Now, I realize this is complicated so much by Ohtani specifically being a guy that's already hit 40 homers this season and is probably going to steal 20 bases, and in leagues where you can use him for both, it's totally different. But just as a pitcher, I think he's probably a fringe top 100 overall pick if you're just getting Ohtani the pitcher, even with all of those concerns, because there is still quite a bit of ceiling there. And I think I'm tempted to say that the way he's adjusted and adapted as a hitter and the progress he has made already just in a few years gives me some hope that he can continue to evolve as a pitcher. Like I'd be hesitant to declare Shohei Ohtani a finished product, given what we've seen in his arc to this point in his career.
Yes, and that's why you bet on stuff, and his stuff is so big, and like he hasn't been, especially for him, right? Like it's not like he has been honing his craft as a pitcher full time since he was 11, like most of these guys,
Mm-hmm.
He's been both, so he's been spending half the time on it. So it's totally plausible that he could repeat next year by improving his command and being a little bit less lucky.
Yeah.
But so that's why you bet on stuff. I think I would just put him. I would like to hear this. Do you have your RotoWire earned value calculator up?
I'd have it nearby.
Okay, so give me Kyle Hendricks
Mm-hmm.
versus Kyle Hendricks, 144 innings, pretty close to the top, 4.04 ERA.
Yep.
So give me Kyle Hendricks versus, see here, somebody with like about 20 fewer innings, but okay, Lance Lynn.
Okay, Lance Lynn's worth 20, and Kyle Hendricks is worth 7.
The strikeout rates are pretty different, though.
Yeah.
Let's do another one. Luis Castillo. He has good strikeout rates, right?
Yeah, the whip's really bad right now still for the season. Even though he's pitched better lately, he's got a 1.403 whip for the season.
Yeah.
They've got him at a $0 value for the whole year.
Oh, okay. How about... it's hard to find these compilers, man.
Well, here's another way to look at it. I mean, just looking at Ohtani compared to the other guys who are worth about the same. Ohtani's worth 13 as a pitcher.
Uh-huh.
And Giolito's been worth 13. Giolito's ERA is a run higher. He's thrown 41 more innings. He only has one more win, and he's got 41 more strikeouts on the season. So Ohtani's got him beaten ratios by a healthy margin and has 41 fewer innings, but has been worth the same amount.
I think that's actually a decent place for Ohtani to live going forward. Giolito. They can be sort of, I think they can be ranking buddies.
Yeah, Jose
You know what I mean?
Barrios is right there too.
Well, there's a compiler. There's a bit of a meat and potatoes.
Tyler Mahle.
Yeah, I was looking at Miley. I wouldn't put those guys. I may put Barrios up there, but I think this is a grouping for me, and they're very different, but I think they belong together. Kershaw, Barrios, Ohtani, and Giolito, and maybe Darvish. That's like 13 through 16.
I like that group a lot. That group makes me feel okay if I don't get one of my top end guys.
I know, and I know Ariel Cohn has done this research about getting two aces and the two secondary aces is not great strategy, but to me that I would love to pair one of the meat and potatoes guys in that group with one of the other guys, like a Barrios Giolito combination would feel pretty good.
Yeah, I think it would work. And
this year it would have earned you what, like two of the top 20 starting pitchers, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, in this year, I mean, again, this has been a strange year. So I'm trying to decide if the consistency of the old approaches isn't necessarily going to work. Like if the ways we typically build a roster might lead us astray because of what 2020 was and how that impacted 2021.
No, it's coming up in our benchmarking for because Hawkeye's only been around for 2 years, and we have Hawkeye things in Stuff Plus, like observed spin axis and stuff that's in Stuff Plus. But we only have 2 years to work with, right? And one of them was really short, and the other one has a bunch of injury and had a sticky stuff enforcement in the middle of the year that changed people's stuff ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So Yes, it is. It is maybe important, maybe not to overlearn during these times. But right now, in the face of more pitching injuries than we've ever had in the history of baseball, really, I think diversification of risk is better than double tapping aces at the top. That's just how I feel. I don't want to spend that much resource on one position at the very top. And it's the most injured position. So I'm going to win a league where Bieber was my number one pick. So that's fine. I think you can survive if you pick an ace up there. But Bieber, like I didn't go Bieber. I didn't go to like two pitchers. Like what if I gone Bieber Bauer? Totally plausible.
Sure.
That wouldn't have won that league.
That would have worked. I mean, as a 1-2 turn combination, that was a thing that would have fit on a lot of boards. Like
that would not have won my league. So
no.
That was a bad name. It's just the one that popped in because it's in the news. But my point is, like there's a lot of risk in the pitchers in particular right now. So I'm going to take an ace. And I'm going to try to maybe double tap in that Barrios grouping if it makes sense.
I think we should talk about a few other pitchers that have cases to go much earlier than they would have gone in the past. I mean, Robbie Ray, and I think it boils down to a pretty simple question. Does Robbie Ray own good control now? Have we seen enough to say this is a different guy and we can trust him to be who we saw throughout 2021 as opposed to pulling the old Jekyll and Hyde and going back to the walk machine that he was prior to this season?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good example of, I did Ray and I keep getting all the Rays. No, I want Robbie Ray.
There aren't that many Rays.
Okay, his command plus was 95 in 2020. And I think that it was very surprising to me when Max came to me and said that stuff plus was more consistent year to year, but location plus was stabilized quicker and was just as important in pitching plus in a given season. So I actually think that location, command is the finickier one. You have your stuff basically year to year, and command is the thing that comes and goes. And so I would say, no, I think Robbie Ray's a trap, dude. I mean, he had a great year and the team gave him a great strategy. But even if you look at him, in the Stuff Plus app over time, he's lived near 100 and below location plus for, like something like 5 of his starts. So, group those 5 together differently, and we may have a different idea about his command. So 2-pitch guy with massive walk rates in his past, and had a year where his location strategy popped. I see him as a regression candidate, pretty hardcore.
I think that makes sense, but I think it will be a fairly common take because there's such a long track record of him struggling to avoid free passes. But it makes me wonder, at the flip side, are you buying in for a Blake Snell bounce back? I mean, because we had 3 years of a low 3s walk rate for Snell. He's had occasional home run rate issues, most specifically in the shortened season. This year, the walk rate has been just off the charts bad. Is that who Snell is now, or is Snell a clear rebound candidate for you looking forward?
I didn't mention that the other aspect of why location can vary so much year to year is coaching. I mean, location plus has to be affected by coaches. There's a game plan. They call certain locations. And the average tenure of pitching and hitting coaches in baseball right now is somewhere around a year and a half. I think pitching coaches, some of them have lasted longer, like Brent Strom is a one-man number changer. If you're just going to use average, he's gonna push that number. But in like hitting coaches, it's a year and a half, and I would suspect that the median for pitching coaches is around the same. So I mentioned that because I think you could have maybe better strategies for Blake Snell. It took him a really long time to put away the changeup that he was so in love with, you know. And ever since he has, his stuff has gone up. And with a guy that has, you know, a league average four seam or better than average four seam, a league average curveball, and a really great slider, I think that a change in pitching coaches could do him some wonders. In fact, I think he would agree with me is something I might say. I think there is something he misses about Tampa.
Yeah, it's kind of it's sort of like what it used to be with the Braves back in the 90s and early 2000s. It was, the Braves got rid of a pitcher. Duck, it's not going to work.
I wonder how much of that was location strategy, you know, when you think about it. Because Leo Mazzoni was the low and away guy. You know, he was all about low and away. And of course, hitters over time started to develop swings that could hit low and away. And so I think at some point your magic runs out if you've got one trick in your bag and it's low and away. But imagine if you're being preached low and away and then you go to a new team and they say, let's do something else here or there. And maybe you struggle and it's like, oh, see, Braves magic. Well, maybe it was actually coaching.
Yeah, it's work inside. Well, I've been working low and away for 4 years, and now I'm
right. That
inside.
too. Like now I'm going to ask you to do something. Oh, I just hit a bunch of batters. Crap.
Yeah.
But we might have a little natural segue here. Zoom, zoom.
Zoom, 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 zoom. We had a question come in about
that's right.
Location Plus.
We are of one mind.
Yes, it is very good here. The question, one mind. It helps that we're no longer 2,000 miles apart. So I think that's part of this. This question came in from Peter. He writes, I had a question regarding Location Plus. In the past, I know you've spoken briefly about Location Plus being used to gain some insight on coaching, such that teams with quality coaching will attack quality areas of the zone. I was curious if you could sort by team Location Plus to see which teams have consistently over or underperformed due to where their pitchers are actually throwing/missing.
Yes, so I have it by pitch type. So it's a little bit messy, and it's pitch type, location, and stuff. One thing I want to point out as I see this is, holy crap, the Dodgers are about stuff. The Dodgers are number one in slider stuff, number two in cutter stuff, number two in sinker stuff, number one in four-seam fastball stuff. And I can't see their logo on the curveball one, but I think they're in the top pack. And they're league average in changeup stuff, but they're number one in changeup location. So the Dodgers have bet heavily on stuff. That's something that pops when you look at this. In terms of location stuff, location rankings, the Rays are number one in four-seam fastball location plus. So they're a big high four seam team, and they're doing a good job of it. Seems like it's kind of like Moyer was slow, slower, slower. The Rays are high, higher, highest. The Rays also have a really good cutter strategy. Only the Pirates and Brewers have a better cutter location plus. The Rays have a top 4 or 5 slider location plus too. So I would say the Rays are a top location plus team. The Giants have the second best four-seam fastball location plus, the second best changeup plus location plus, the third best curveball location plus, and the third best sinker changeup location plus. The only one where they're below the pack in location plus is slider and cutter, weirdly. But when I see that they are an 80 location plus on the cutter, it makes me think either they don't have a lot of cutter pitchers or they have a different strategy that just somehow goes against the norm. So the Giants pop for me too. Teams that are very bland. I would say the Padres show up as only having one pitch type that they are comfortably above average in location plus. That's the cutter, and they just don't pop in any way. They're kind of a middle of the road team. The Rockies have terrible location plus on almost all their pitch types. They have the second worst four seam fastball strategy. So second to the Royals. The Royals pop is having terrible location plus. Their sinker, changeup, four seam fastball, and cutter are all among the worst in location plus.
Well, interesting, just kind of to point this little random thing out. I'm looking at the WAR leaderboard and kind of looking at the team ERAs and everything. And the Royals' actual ERA is 4.89, FIP's 4.50. So they're underperforming on that simple metric too. So,
and what we've been saying on the show, that like they've had a bunch of high picks that people had high expectations for, that were kind of waiting around for them all to pop in the major leagues.
Yeah. And, I think the Dodgers, as great as they are, they're actually overperforming their FIP so far. Not a big surprise to see that. Interesting you mentioned the Rockies, though, because they're mid-pack in terms of WAR, but just because they're just getting a lot of innings from their starters. Marquez has been good this year. John Gray's actually had a pretty good year, too. But I was expecting them to be buried in this just this team pitching WAR list. I thought
some of those guys are also getting private coaching.
Yeah, that's true.
Like John Gray is definitely a driveline guy. One thing that's popping as I'm looking here, the Brewers are all like basically top 3 to 5 in stuff plus in every pitch type except for the changeup.
And they're third in pitching,
and they have probably the best changeup in baseball. So
yeah, not surprising. I think for the most part, those teams are popping the way they are based on the results and other things we've observed and learned about those teams.
Yankees do actually pretty well in, there's a quadrant thing, right? Where like if you're good in stuff and location plus, you're top right quadrant, and the Yankees are top right quadrant in every pitch type except for the cutter.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
not bad at all. There's a related question here, I think, because we're just talking about coaching here. Alan wrote in on Wednesday's show. Eno said he thinks very highly of Hugh Quattlebaum. That's the Mets hitting coach. That made me wonder, how would one evaluate a hitting coach's value? As a Guardians fan, I know that the fan base has been calling for the organization to fire Ty Van Berkeley for years, but I don't know if he's good or if if he's not good, or if the hitters he has to work with are the problem. So I'm curious why Eno said that about Quattlebaum, and whether he was basing that on conversations he's had with him or other factors. Thanks for the great content.
Yes. So this is a thing that happens with coaching and with player development that we've talked about here, a little bit of faith casting, where you that was a thing that came up in a conversation that we had with Gianni Scurio and Michael Ajedo when they were on while you were traveling. We talked about how different our perception is of the player development systems in place in Chicago for the White Sox and the Mariners. And I have a personal bias that, the Mariners seem to be doing a lot of things right, and that the industry consensus is that the White Sox are behind the times. Now, these things shift, and, the White Sox have been improving their processes and have been improving their data and tech, and especially at the major league level, made a really big switch in going from Cooper to Katz at the pitching level, on the pitching side. But I think that they're, having known how backwards they were just 2 to 3 years ago, even, I would be surprised if the White Sox were a top 10 player development system. However, they give us all these great players, right? I mean, all these great players, especially guys who just popped up, Vaughn, all these guys they're great. So is that major league coaching? Is that our biases? It's not like Kelnick hit the ground running. I would say that I think that pitching in Seattle is maybe a little bit ahead of hitting, but Quattlebaum came from the Mariners, and so it may be just a bias of mine to think that he's good. I've also heard from people that I trust that he's a very good hitting coach, and it's the kind of stuff that I heard about Donnie Ecker before he took over in San Francisco. Now, what's happened in San Francisco? In Cincinnati, Donnie, I think, was assistant hitting coach, and he got let go. In San Francisco, he's the number one hitting coach. And here is a place that you can kind of, it's not perfect, but it is the stat that I would use to evaluate hitting coaches, and that is reach rate. And the reason that I would use reach rate, how often a batter swings outside the zone, is for a few reasons. One, Pizza Cutter, Russell Carlton, did have a piece that said that hitting coaches can have an effect that you see in the numbers when it comes to swing and reach rates. So that's their major point of influence is, do I make my hitters a little bit more passive and they don't reach as much, or do I make them more aggressive? That's the kind of toggle, the major toggle that you see in the numbers. That doesn't describe every relationship. Of course, there are hitting coaches that come and change mechanics or do this or do that, right? But that's when you look at just numbers wise, what is their effect? This is their effect. So reach rate. The other thing is reach rate encapsulates game planning, I think, almost better than anything, right? How do I get my hitters to reach less? Well, I tell them what's coming, and I prepare them in a way that makes them feel good, right? And so about not swinging at balls. And then also the last thing is not swinging at balls is super important. In terms of, let's see here, I'm going to use the pitch info, plate discipline, swing on Fangraphs. Here are the teams that reached the least: Padres, Dodgers, Giants, Yankees, Astros, A's, Brewers. I mean, is there a bad team in there?
No.
And so here's my bias. The Mets reach at the 11th most rate. So perhaps Quattlebaum is not getting through or is not doing as great a job as I expected. Perhaps there was some bias on my part in that comment that I made. But I would say that in terms of hitting coaching, those teams that I just mentioned are getting good hitting coaching.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I think it's something I've never really tried to quantify in the past. I think everybody always turns to the hitting coach and the pitching coach as the two scapegoats when things aren't going wrong. Teams not scoring runs, blame the hitting coach. Teams not preventing runs, blame the pitching coach. To a large extent, they're only as effective as the quality of the players they're working with. But the job is to, I think, take a lot of information and synthesize it in a way where a lot of people who learn in different ways and think about the game in a few different ways can actually, understand it and apply it. And I think that's a challenge, right? It's being a teacher. You're not teaching people how to hit. You're teaching them more about what is happening to them in a sequence. And some guys are going to learn that really well. Others aren't. And then it's going to depend on the quality of the teacher and what they do. And I don't know how you measure. Can you measure improvement? Can you measure swing percentage over? Could you take a group of players who were there with one hitting coach and measure that and say, okay, here's what they were doing, and now here's what they're doing with this hitting coach? Yeah, you could do that, but the players also got older. So over time, you're going to probably reach a bit more.
Reach less.
You reach less over time.
You swing less. As you get older, you swing less. I've done that before, though, and I wrote a piece defending Dave Hudgens when he was fired by the Mets, because I said, look, if you look at their swing rates, a lot of these guys had better swing choices with him than without him. And who picked him up? But the Astros. And I know there's a whole thing there, and I guess he was there for that. I believe him when he says he didn't have a part in that. I also think he was a good hitting coach. He's now, I think, the bench coach in Toronto. But he's also taken on hitting coaching duties there. So I think the world of him, and I hope that it is true that he wasn't part of that. And Toronto has a better than average reach rate. So interesting little side note. Here's some things that occurred to me while you were talking. Brandon Nimmo was put on this earth to walk. He has a celebration for his walks, and talked to him about this recently, and he said that his dad, since he was like 6 or 7, would like put colors on the ball and tell him to track the colors, would tell him to yell out what pitch type it was when he threw it, would like painted a strike zone, and like was very all about controlling the zone. And he had an older brother that went to Nebraska D1, and the two of them would train in this shed in Nebraska that he built out to basically mimic to have the strike zone and have the mound. And he would actually get really close to kind of make these decisions harder on Nimmo, which is important because Nimmo wasn't playing high school baseball or travel baseball like the rest of the Major League Baseball players. He was playing some Legion ball and then practicing with his dad in the shed. But he trained all this stuff, and I asked him about what does he do now to hone that, because he now has the fourth best reach rate in baseball. So what do you do now to do that? And he goes, well, I still do some of the drills that I used to do, but now I can go and ask Hugh, what's the extension on this pitcher and how much ride does he get on his fastball? Because he said that those were two things that he added at the major league level that helped him understand how much the fastball was going to jump out of the zone at the top of the zone. So should he take that high four seam that looks like it's in the zone because it's going to ride out of the zone? And then also he said just extension helps him understand how quickly the ball is going to get upon him, because 92 with low extension, 92 with high extension, the ball coming out closer to you is different. So those are things. That's Hugh's talking. That's Hugh talking, right? That's Hugh giving him information that he wants. And the other thing I thought of was Donnie Ecker coaches Brandon Crawford, Buster Posey, and Brandon Belt, and Evan Longoria. These 4 guys have been around for effing ever, right? All 4 of them are showing either the best or top 3 reach rates of their career. And all 4 of them are super different people, like totally different people. Buster Posey is an analytical red ass who is looking at the numbers, and then he goes and takes an at bat, and he goes back and looks at the numbers, and he wants information. He wants to know everything he can know. He's a catcher, he just wants to compete like nobody's business. Brandon Belt is a mellow effing dude, like just a mellow dude. I asked him about this. He's like, just tell me what the guy has. Just tell me what the guy has. That's all I want to know. Just tell me what he has. Maybe a little bit about the shapes. That's it. Brandon Crawford is somewhere in between. Evan Longoria made fun of me for asking him about walks when he first came to San Francisco. Literally made fun of me to another writer. He's now
why?
He has the best. I don't know. I probably said rate or ratio or something. Like I don't know. I don't remember actually. I remember us talking about walks. I don't remember him being mad about it in the conversation. But he sort of derided me to another writer somehow, and I was like, "What? Come on, Evan!" But now he's got the best walk rate he's had in like 5 years, and the best reach rate of his career. So that to me is like, okay, the hitting coach is good. This hitting coach is good. I think it's a little bit harder. Maybe the very best and the very worst are kind of easy to spot, and then it's a little bit harder in the middle.
Right. In the middle, I feel like results are just going to push you out the door if things aren't going well, like because you don't have something standing out, right?
Yeah, but you're also in the pecking order. Like that's the other thing I thought of when you said you're hired to be fired. I mean, nobody's around for very long. They have 1 or 2 year tenures. Some guys make it past that and around for a long time. But you're hired to be fired. You're the first in the line of fire if the offense doesn't do what it's supposed to. So, any case, if there are any intrepid listeners out there looking for a project, I do think matched, weighted by volume, matched O-swing changes. Before and after a hitting coach is and swing and O-swing. Those are interesting ways to evaluate a hitting coach.
Yeah, just to put a bow on it, I just think back to the pre-Willie Adames era in Milwaukee this season. I feel like there were a lot more calls for Andy Haynes to be relieved as the Brewers hitting coach, and since they've played really well since adding Adames. I feel like those calls
Rowdy
have gone
comes
away.
over and does well. Adames comes over and does well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Christian saga is just, I think, probably a physical one.
Right. That doesn't seem like Andy Haynes' fault. It seems like there's a little more going on there. That
there was some question at some point this year, like if he would come back and play.
Weird.
Right.
Just weird. Well,
right. He went back. Maybe he went back on the DL for the back.
Right. And it ended up being a quick stint, but I think everybody thought, oh, this could be really bad because he just came back. Right. He became.
I'm sure he's managing pain
before he went back.
I'm sure he's managing pain.
All right. He's just not telling anybody. Right. Like that's the
or
only
the team knows, and they're just not gonna. They're not really talking about
it. Maybe it's the kind of thing he can't make it worse structurally by playing with it, so they let him play. But
he feels like poop.
But he doesn't feel well, and he's not going to hit the ball nearly as hard as often as he did. He's not going to barrel it the same way. I don't. Again, this is pure speculation, but I think it's easy to see how the narrative around a team changes, and then suddenly the hitting coach or the pitching coach becomes a lot safer all of a sudden. I think Milwaukee's probably one example of that. Thanks a lot for that question, Alan. A couple more pitching things we should get to before we go. Trevor Rogers, I think, is interesting for the future ADP watch, and I think about him kind of in the same sort of light that I was thinking about Logan Gilbert earlier this week. I mean, he's done everything we are looking for, really, in a young pitcher. Great results so far. He's been away from the team on the restricted list for like a personal matter, so we don't really know if he's coming back to pitch anytime soon. What he's done so far through 20 starts, though, has, I think, laid the groundwork for him to be probably a top 20, top 25 pitcher, at least in terms of ADP. Maybe not in terms of rank, but I think based on how he's going to be treated going to next season, it's going to be a premium to go out and get Trevor Rogers. Is there anything you see in his profile that would give you pause about going after him if he ends up falling into that previously noted like 75-ish range where I think Logan Gilbert's going to end up?
If he's that cheap, I have no qualms about taking him. I have a feeling he won't be cheap at all. I have a feeling he might be right after that Giolito grouping that we were talking about.
You think he's going to get that high?
Yeah. It's interesting. Some of the Stuff Plus updates we had captured a little bit more of his stuff. And so he has 102 stuff, 101 location, 102 pitching. This is a comfortably above average pitcher in a great park. And I think I would rank him in the top 20. Wouldn't you kind of rank him right after that? Who would you rather have, Rogers or Malley?
I think I'd take Rogers. Much safer place to pitch.
Yeah. Who would you rather have, Malley or Gilbert? Gilbert's a 103 stuff plus, 99 location, 104 pitching. Tyler Malley is similar, but maybe more command.
Yeah, I think there's more command from Malley if I remember what I've seen from the cards in the past. I think I'd go Gilbert there too, though. And
Malley is 101 stuff, 104 location, 103 pitching. So pitching says, but it's sort of like our conversation. Gilbert's more stuff forward and Malley's more location forward. However, Malley's also shown this location ability for a lot of years.
Yeah, I'm very confident in that ability for Malley. I think that's a very good would you rather, but I guess this one circles back around to what about Rogers versus Gilbert? Like,
okay, just if we're going to rank the three.
Yeah.
Let's just rank the three. He's circling around it with these would you rather. I'm still thinking NLDH.
Okay.
Rogers. I'm going Malley, Gilbert.
So you're going.
There's just a little bit of a whiff of risk around Gilbert for me in terms of regression, second year regression, and a possible difference in price tag, where I might be taking Malley at price versus Gilbert at price.
I think I'm gonna go Gilbert, Rogers, Malley. But again, we're splitting hairs in August about 2022 value. I don't think this is a I definitely like Roger, or I like Gilbert the most, slamming the fist down. And
Well, I think, putting the curveball away and finding a really useful changeup at the major league level has been kind of huge for Gilbert. And it's a little bit of a lesson in, like, these guys don't get to the major leagues as fully formed situations,
Right. Yeah. Always tweaking and tweaking and tweaking again. Last name to throw at you for today, Luis Garcia, the Astros pitcher that you've, I think, liked for a long time. I believe he's been on your radar really since he first kind of popped up in the big leagues. Where do we go with his ADP? Does he kind of fit into this group, or is he one more tier below the names that we just mentioned?
111. No, see, this is the wrong guy. There's two Luis Garcias in here. They both have good stuff. The other one must be a reliever. Split finger. Luis Garcia doesn't have a split finger.
No, but he's got a bunch of above average pitches.
Who is the other Luis Garcia? Anyway,
which team does he play for? I'll figure that out while you
104 stuff plus for Luis Garcia, 120 slider, 116 changeup, 103 cutter, 98 four seam, 95 curveball. I mean, I love it. It's great stuff across the board. The location plus is above average, 3 of his 5 pitches, not like, it's basically average for the other 2. I love him. I am in the tank. I will take him above all the guys we just mentioned.
Okay, so that might be,
I guess, him versus Rogers is a little bit interesting. If there was no NLDH, Rogers in Marlins Park, without a DH, maybe.
I think the AL West is still going to be a reasonably easy division to pitch in next year too. So that bodes
I think
really
the A's may blow it up.
That's sad.
There's 3 parks there that are nice to pitch in. And then he's got his home park, which is not amazing to pitch in, but it's his home park. So there's really no scary park in that division, except for Anaheim has been playing a little bit hitter friendly recently.
Well, I'm on board with Luis Garcia being in the conversation with those other names. I think he's
where you put him among those 3.
I don't think he'll have any sort of restrictions on his workload next year. I think I'd go Gilbert, Garcia, Rogers.
You love Gilbert. Love it. Love the love for Gilbert.
Yep. Again, maybe I'm overhyping him. Maybe I'm expecting too much because of the prospect pedigree, but I've got Gilbert at the top of that group. I've got Garcia second. Reliever Luis Garcia is a Cardinal, by the way.
There you go.
Old Cardinal, 34.
He has good split finger, apparently. I would go, Rogers, Garcia, like, that's really, I think there's some information we need to split those up, but I would put those 2 next to each other. And then here's another question for you. How many innings do you think Garcia gets to this year? He threw 108, 109 in 2019. He's at 116 right now.
And they're keeping him closer to 5, I think, right now, as much as they can.
5 innings per start.
Starts ago, yeah, but a lot of 5s and 4 2/3 on the game log. I mean, he's got hit a couple times recently too.
I bet you they keep him on schedule, but they do some 2s and 3s and get Javier in there.
Yeah, maybe. I think they probably want to keep him fresh for the postseason too, because he's an important arm for them.
How do you do that? That's the hardest thing. Is you want to keep him stretched out. So he's stretched out as a starter for the postseason, but you don't want to blow through the doors off of every previous thing. And you also want to keep him on schedule for maybe pitching 180 next year.
Yeah, I think you maybe skip a turn instead. Like, if you taper him down, do you have enough time to taper him back up?
Or what about a 6-man?
You could try that.
It's either, to me, I don't like skipping because then it's just like a hole in the middle and you have to work back out of it. What I think I would lean towards either tandem with Javier, where you're kind of stretching them both out to like 2.5, and then near the end of the season, either Javier takes over for Odorizzi and Odorizzi goes to the pen. By getting people to like 2.5, 3, you have some options as they ramp up or down from there.
I'm a little concerned about Christian Javier's walk rate being up this year, 12.6%. And the results have been great. 284 ERA, 113 whip, 107 Ks, and 85 and two-thirds innings. He's providing plenty of value in the role the Astros have put him in. I guess I'm concerned in that it gives me a lot of doubts about his chances of eventually moving back into a starting role.
Yeah. And it's something that popped in Command Plus. He always had sort of 90, sub 90 around there, Command Plus. I'm pulling up the location. Location Plus is just slightly below average and says he can actually locate his slider decently. But Stuff Plus is mostly all slider and then an average four seam, average knuckle, average change. I'm still a pretty big fan, and I think he just has too much value for them as a starter for them to ignore that. Plus, he pitched enough innings this year to think about him as a starter next year.
For sure.
And I think that there's enough need that at the very worst going into next year, he'll be their sixth starter.
Yeah, and that's a good spot to be in, as we learned with Luis Garcia this draft season. All it takes is one
He was
injury.
a sixth starter coming into the season with a slightly different profile, like better command, but lots of pitches, good stuff. I mean, I think if Javier drops a lot in drafts next year, I'll have some shares, man.
He's a great draft Champions League guy. If you're going to play some draft and hold leagues, Javier is going to get innings. And
worst case scenario, he's the guy you slip in there when everyone else is injured, and you just need some innings.
Right. There could be some Ross Stripling type usage going on here. Good Ross Stripling type usage. He was actually pitching pretty well before he got hurt more recently, kind of turning things around after a slow start.
We're all looking for the next Ross Stripling.
On Javier, we really are.
Sorry.
on Javier, like, is it interesting to you that his walk rate as a starter this year was actually lower than what it's been in the bullpen? I mean, he's just under 4 walks per 9 as a starter. He's over 5.5 as a reliever.
Let me see here. His mix has been mostly fastball slider, right?
Yep.
So he's slowed down the secondary pitches. So fastball slider, location plus, second worst location plus among his pitches is a four-seam fastball.
Oh, lefties just... Oh, man, he walks lefties like crazy. 7 walks per 9 in his split against lefties. Only 3 walks per 9.
Oh, man, that's really interesting. We haven't done splits on stuff and location yet. And I think that could be instructive, maybe a year 2 type thing. The good news is this model, instead of changing, and because I've worked with all these different modelers and they all get hired by, the last 4 have been hired by teams. And so every year feels like, oh God, I gotta work with someone to build it all over again. This year, the good news is, even though Max Bay has been hired by a team, congratulations, Max.
Yeah, congrats to Max, and thank you for all the hard work here.
Yeah, for sure. Is that there's going to be a handoff. So I will have the model, and I will be looking for a modeler to work with on these sorts of questions, because Zach Greinke said a long time ago to me, and it's something that most pitchers agree with him about, is that you have better command to your arm side.
So if you're a righty, you better command pitching to a right-handed hitter.
Yes. So I would guess that Javier is having a hard time pitching inside to lefties with the four seam.
Seems like a very good hypothesis based on what we've got there, and probably merits a little further exploration, but that seems pretty correctable. If that's your flaw, you have stuff like Javier does, that seems like the kind of thing you could actually fix.
It's weird that it's exacerbated in a relief role, but maybe he's just, the plan is more fastball slider, and when he was a starter, he would mix in a more back foot curveballs and steal strikes in different ways that he's just not doing as a reliever.
Yeah, so interesting pitcher for sure. Definitely one that I still like for deeper leagues in 2022, even though that walk rate is up for the season. We are going to head out because it is the weekend. Yay.
I got a chat.
We made it. Eno's got a chat to get to. If you don't have a subscription to The Athletic, you can get one for 30% off at theathletic.com/rates and barrels. Be sure to do that. Check out all the good stuff we have, and be there the next time Eno does a chat. On Twitter, he's at Eno Saris. I am at Derek Van Riper. You can always email us. Rates and barrels at theathletic.com is the best way to reach us. And of course, if you're enjoying this show on a platform that allows you to leave us a rating and review, we'd greatly appreciate that. We did have a question about helping us out on Spotify. At this time, there's nothing you can do on Spotify to rate or review a podcast. So as long as you're subscribing there, that's awesome. But if you want to go on Apple Podcasts and drop us a rating, even though you listen on Spotify, I guess that'd be the best thing you could do to kind of help us out on that front. So we appreciate everybody who's done that. Of course, we appreciate all of you who've been subscribers to The Athletic, and we hope everybody has a great weekend.
You always just jump on YouTube and hang a like on my weird ass eyeballs from this morning.
Yes. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. That's another good way to help support the show as well. But hopefully everybody has a great weekend. We are back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.